What's good, everybody? For all my listeners today, man, I got an opportunity, man, to sit down with an incredibly gifted person, man, that goes by the name of Coach Brad Fields. You know what I'm saying? And me and Coach gonna be in the building today, man. He's gonna talk about some of the things, man, that he do in the world of athletes. You know what I'm saying? So, for all that don't know, man, I'm gonna introduce you right now to Coach Brad Fields. Coach, how you doing today, my brother?
Hey, I'm doing well. I'm doing blessed. How about yourself?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. You know what I'm saying? So let's crack it off, man. Let me know, man, eventually where you from, and we're gonna get into a lot of different things. But let's first start off, man, and where you from, and how long you been doing your thing in coaching?
Okay. Hey, my name's once again it's Brad Fields or Coach Fields, and goodness, coming from Grand Rapids, Michigan, by way of a little suburb called Kentwood, Michigan. Goodness, really blessed to have the opportunity to conquered the state of Michigan growing up back in the 90s and stuff like that in the sport of track and field.
Okay.
Was basically two-time state champ in the 100 as well as the two.
Wow.
Put it on the D, put it on Flinttown. Did some real nice things out there. Had the opportunity as well, got blessed with the opportunity to go to Michigan State University on a full ride scholarship.
Wow.
Graduated from there and came down here to run professional. And run down here with at the time it was Arizona State's sprint coach, who's now back at the University of Kentucky.
Wow.
Where I had met him in the beginning. His name is Daryl Anderson, and he's over there right now. He was Texas Christian University's head coach, and then left from Texas Christian, went down to Florida. Coached at Florida.
We gonna boy, you it's so long.
And then went to Kentucky.
Listen, that resume is so long. We gonna have to pick that apart.
It's a beautiful situation. It's a beautiful situation. I've just had the opportunity to be around some great leaders. My coach, Jim Bibbs, from Michigan State. He was basically the first African American Division I head coaches.
Wow.
That was put in the head coaching position back in the 70s. He was brought on board during the civil rights era by Biggie Munn back in the 60s, right after the Martin Luther King civil rights situation out in Detroit.
Okay.
He's from Ecorse, Michigan. He tied Jesse Owens' world record in the 55. Just a wealth of knowledge, basically a historian as well as just a mentor, a leader, and certain things like that. Had the opportunity as well of sitting up underneath Karen Dennis, who is a young lady. If you look at her, she was at Ohio State, just recently retired about 3 years ago.
Okay.
Led the men as well as the women's track and field team at Ohio State.
At Ohio State.
Yeah. And,
so let me stop you for a second because you got a lot. You know what I'm saying? We gonna. So first I want to talk a little bit about you. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like, when you grew up, you said you grew up in Michigan.
Yes.
Right? At some point you wanted to run.
Absolutely.
Was you running from something to somebody?
Hey, I was running from a lot of things. Living in the suburbs and everything else like that. You got to run from a lot of things.
You got to run from a lot of things.
Jumping out of people's windows.
Hey, that's the part. That's the part. Those are the parts that we want to talk about because everybody don't, like most kids growing up, you know what I'm saying? Like everybody always into different sports. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know for myself, I was into basketball and football. What made you choose track? Like, was you fast, just naturally fast, or it was a love of somebody before you did it? I mean,
basically, I didn't choose track. Track chose me.
Okay.
So it was, my thing was coming out of high school was going to be basketball.
Okay.
I ended up getting sick, playing basketball my senior year in high school, and ended up pretty much missing out on my full, senior season because I ended up getting really, really sick,
right,
causing me to have a surgery.
Okay.
Within that, no scholarships came out, but I had already won my junior year, the state champion, as well as the top 3 in the state
in track.
From there, in track.
Wow.
So from there, presented an opportunity where coaches were still reaching out to me, in the state as well as out of state. Making opportunities, known for me for, scholarship for track and field.
Right.
It's kind of hard for a 6 foot tall, athlete to come out unless they really bang it,
Right.
from that junior season to really make a certain situation known in that basketball arena. Had talent in football, but just didn't, for my school's sake, didn't have the opportunities that I really wanted to
Right.
reach on the football
and sometimes it just don't
Yep.
work out, like
Yep.
it depends on what position and the timing of different things, you know
That's
what I'm
right.
saying?
That's right.
Because I do know, that was a similar story with me when I was going to school back east, you know what I'm saying? I couldn't make the football team. It was the coaches and all of that.
Yep.
And they didn't want brothers. I come
Yeah.
where they really wasn't. They looking at us as knuckleheads.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Or otherwise otherwise it was always on a level system.
Right.
So, or,
Right.
coming from Michigan, you're coming from like a union style where everybody, it was about like, as a freshman,
Mm-hmm.
you might be one of the fastest kids on the planet. You
Right.
might be one of the most talented kids on the planet, but you're not moving up.
Right.
You're gonna take the earnship where you're gonna learn how to earn where your keep.
Right.
Whether it be on your freshman team, then moving up to the JV team, and then getting the opportunity your junior and senior year for varsity sports.
I want to talk about. So we already talked about you going to college and getting a scholarship to go run track,
Yes.
right? What was that like? Because we come up in an age and a time, you know what I mean, where nothing was given.
Correct.
Everything was incredibly hard for us because we had to prove ourselves 2 and 3 times.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
And so I want you to kind of speak a little bit about just some of the experiences that you had through the scholarship, because a lot of people don't really understand that whole process. You know what I mean? A lot of kids may not understand that whole process. So I just want you to kind of talk a little bit about that process, you know what I'm saying? And then also some of the experiences that you had, good and bad.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Going through that process
right.
of going to school.
Well, looking back and goodness me, it's been many moons, many days, since I've done it or there. But I mean, a lot of the thing is that, with having that opportunity of being, getting that full ride scholarship, it went through just the natural stages that it kind of does today.
Okay.
We just didn't have the amount of social media,
right?
The amount of just the sheer opportunity for these coaches nationwide to be able to reach out to you,
okay,
and recruit you. It just came down to pretty much newspapers, or otherwise the corresponding coaches, the coaches who knew each other,
right,
and wanted the opportunity to kind of commit to a challenge with one another
Mm-hmm.
for each other's athletes, and kind of sit back and say, hey, I want this athlete or I don't want this athlete.
Right. So, you're in school, you're there on a scholarship. Of course, academics is important.
Huge.
You know what I mean? Because you was on the track team, was it easier to go through academics, or did you, some people, because when you're on a sports team, whatever, you don't got to work as hard.
Yeah. And I totally understand that.
Mm-hmm.
For me, no, it wasn't like that.
Okay.
I came in, and actually I was heralded to be ran up out of there.
Oh,
rather than
this is what I'm talking
rather
about.
than to stick around and stay.
This is exactly what I'm talking about.
So I came in. Goodness, a kid that was close to being a Prop 48 kid. They don't have that anymore.
Okay.
Where basically you would have either came in on a full ride scholarship and you would have had 3 years of scholarship opportunity.
Okay.
Or otherwise, because you didn't qualify on the grade side, you didn't pass these ACTs or SAT exams. I was fortunate to pass my ACT exam, and did not become a Prop 48 kid. My surgery held me back a little bit,
right,
where I had to take an additional class during my graduation year, just to make up for a certain class that I had missed or whatever. But it all worked out.
Right.
Ended up coming in there doing my 4 years, but one of the academic advisors at that particular time. The little nun lady, basically had her own beliefs as to what African American kids or melanated kids could do.
Yeah.
Had her own idea, so she ended up kind of plotting. Put me in, goodness, 18 credit hours as a freshman coming in.
Okay.
And you only had to take a total of 13 to 14 credit hours. Totally overloaded me, and basically ended up falling short. Put me in classes that I wasn't supposed to be in, and everything else like that. Advised me incorrectly.
Right.
But glory be to God.
Yes, sir.
Everything worked out. I was able to run. My freshman year, I ended up working certain situations out. Worked with other advisors.
Okay.
And they ended up making things work towards my good.
How's that? So I never really kind of been in. Of course, I know a lot of people that can run.
Yes.
Run like the wind. You know what I mean? But how does that whole the track team dynamic work? You know what I mean? Because a lot of us have never kind of been in that situation.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So how's that dynamic work? How does that team dynamic work?
The team dynamic works for me is that everybody brings what they can to the table.
Okay.
So you're required to do what you have to do. I, as a coach now, I look at it and I talk to my kids and I tell them straight up that it is about you, as an individual, and what that individual does. It comes to the team concept. Track is a pretty cool sport, because the thing is that nobody gets to sit the bench.
Right.
Whether you're running the 100, whether you're throwing the shot put or throwing the javelin, you're out there to do your best, whether it be against your teammates or otherwise against your opponents, to be able to score points for your team.
Right.
So nobody ever gets to sit the bench.
Right.
And everybody gets an opportunity to participate. So it's not non-subjective, where a sport like basketball is it's determined by the point guard getting the center of the ball,
right,
or the center nowadays walking up the court with no defense, and you know what I mean,
because everything is different.
Exactly.
It's different in track.
Exactly.
Everything is not predicated on something somebody else does.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
So you got your own thing in your own hand, and you can
Correct.
do your own thing. Basically.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
It's beautiful.
And so with that being said, because it's almost like you're standalone. You know what I mean? You out there, you're doing your thing. What's the training like? Because it gotta be different than most other sports when you training in track. Man, I kind of touch upon that a little bit.
I mean, you have over 21 events, or basically like 18 events that you can partake in, whether it be throws, jumps, runs, long distance, short distance, going over hurdles, or otherwise going over barriers. Those are all the events that are taken into place. The coaching that comes involved, you want an educated coach that can either teach you how to do a pole vault, holding onto a pole and going over a barrier, sticking it in a hole and going up over a barrier. Those are things that you really want to be able to take an account to. As being a young athlete, you want to have somebody that's knowledgeable. Nowadays, a lot of these kids are going to YouTube, and they don't know whether or not or where this person is teaching. So, somebody could be teaching in the Midwest who's never been down here in the Southwest, to really to really engage in this temperature and in this heat. So so they don't really have that education as to how much you need to warm up. They can only put together something and present it on TV, or to a kid, and then the kid's wondering why it's not working out for them in that particular manner.
So what's your feelings on? So overall, you know what I mean? There's certain coaches, there's certain trainers, and everybody sometimes coaches and trains a certain way. What's your style of training?
My style of training is to train the athlete.
Okay.
It's not necessarily, because every athlete is totally different. We have, with track and field, you look at it, you have Usain Bolt, who's 6'6", and then you have a guy like Christian Coleman nowadays, who's saying that he's 5'8", but he's probably about 5'6", 5'7".
Okay.
So when it comes to those types of things, you're looking at reaction time, you're looking at coordination, you're looking at balance. So the types of things that you would do for a Christian Coleman to make him more explosive and more exciting, for him to get down to the times that he needs,
Right.
is totally going to be different than what it takes for Usain Bolt,
Right.
In terms of doing certain things like that. So you have to look at those variables, as a coach, in order to put those types of scientific things together, because people's dynamic or builds
different.
and certain things like that are totally different.
Right. I need you to tell me a story about sometimes you coaching a particular athlete or student,
Mm-hmm.
and there's pushback. Like they don't. I knew that again.
Hey, there's always pushback. It's a beautiful thing, though.
Right. I need you to kind of talk a little bit about, because I know you've kind of experienced this many different times, where they don't believe in what you're saying to them.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets to the point to where now they start believing what you were saying to them because it's working.
That's it.
It's changed their performance and what they're doing. I speak a little bit about
what's really, really exciting. I mean, goodness, 2024 was really cool. We had two young athletes, a female as well as a male, qualify for the Olympic trials.
Okay.
It took, basically, they were willing workers. They were very, very willing workers on that side. But some of the differences is that, some of the kids nowadays, instead of stepping up or changing that light, they kind of see the ranking report. So they see, hey, this is number 1. I'm ranked number 9. So I'm not going to be trying to reach number 1 because there's 7 other people or 8 other people in my path.
Right.
So to teach these kids that it's not about a ranking report. It's not about, the ranking report just shows you where people are.
Right.
And it's an opportunity for you to eliminate those people to be at the top.
Right.
Allows, starts to, break the wind on some of these kids, because what they're, a lot of them look at what is seen on a blue chipper report or certain things like that with these other sports, on terms of where they're ranking and what opportunities are presented for them, are totally different from what, a tenth of a second is, for an athlete or putting together the right race or having the right opportunity.
Absolutely. So being here in Arizona,
okay,
are there some challenges because you're from Arizona or because we're a southwestern city? I mean, I know there are times when you kind of go to, like you said, in certain rankings and certain meetings, whatever the case is, but because you're from Arizona, do people try to hold you back, or has there been some instances?
I haven't received, a lot of, pushback, what I mean, in terms of, from my coaching standpoint.
Right.
The challenges are, when we look at it from a recruiting standpoint, I've had, some of my children, my personal children, as well as, just kids that I've helped and develop. Just by being in the state of Arizona, I've seen a lot of hesitation.
Yes.
Because we are neighbored by Texas.
Yes.
We're neighbored by California.
Okay.
Where the population for either sprints, distance, that this type of a sport, they're picking these kids up, or even athletically from a football standpoint. I do. I have my gym where I coached outside of, trained outside of just track and field. I train. I do a lot of stuff with agility and just muscular body movement and strength and conditioning. For athletes. But with that, it's came with a lot of challenges, from an Arizona standpoint, because a lot of people bypass Arizona to go to California or to go to Texas, and would rather, instead of taking the number 1 kids out of Arizona, they would rather give them a walk-on opportunity rather than picking them up as a regular, standard athlete.
That was absolutely like something I wanted to talk about, because I mean, you understand that. Like, I know, at least I do, I understand it. Like, somebody coming out of Cali, right, may not be as good as the person that's coming out of Arizona, but because they're coming out of Cali, they get a better better opportunity.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Right. And a lot of times it's not right, but that's just part of the business. That's just, and I don't know if you're a person that actually sees that and do what you can to absolutely change that.
I do what I can to change it.
Yes.
I try to reach out as much as possible, for my athletes and stuff like that. I try to advocate for my athletes. I try
Yes.
to stand out there and make it known that, hey, we're a part of this. We're a part of this thing. I mean, some of these kids need that full ride scholarship just as much as the other kid out of California or the other kid out of Texas, or that is just the same, but it's has all the tools.
Right. Absolutely. So you with Glendale?
Yes.
Glendale Community College?
Yes.
How did that come about?
Goodness me. Man, it was, one of the long time coaches. He had retired. His name was Ralph Neighbors. And then another gentleman came in. His name was DeLon Leggett.
Okay.
He had left and decided that it was he wanted to go back and kind of teach and do certain situation, and the opportunity presented itself with one of the young coaches. I ended up coaching a master's lady, and her name is Rachel Guest, and
Okay.
and she was actually assistant coaching at GCC at that particular time. And she was like, would you want the opportunity to, try to look into, coaching at Glendale Community College? And went there, did the interview. A couple other people, tried out for the interview as well, and landed the position.
That's
So
yeah, that's what's up. Because obviously you know what you're doing.
a little bit. A little bit.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's not like you just kind of went in and no, I know what I'm doing.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
And having that confidence of being able to tackle a position like you did. Were you able to bring in staff, like other folks, to help you do what you do?
Yeah, I was able to, kind of bring in staff, kind
Okay.
of not bring in staff, because we had gentlemen or ladies and gentlemen that had been, or more just gentlemen, I'll say that.
Mhm.
We had gentlemen that had been there for years. Goodness, we had an awesome pole vault coach. He passed away. His name was Cranny High Song. His
Okay.
son held the Arizona record as well as the gold medalist, which is one of the High Songs as well. Big time pole vault family. As well as his name's Nick High Song, and his son is actually at Shadow Mountain and is a freshman and ended up clearing, I want to say 17, close to 17 feet already this year.
Wow.
So he'll be, hopefully, doing something special pretty soon.
Yeah.
But goodness, yeah, from there we had quite a few just challenges in terms of bringing in people, but you respect. We had goodness, Coach Cherry. Richard Cherry, who had been there for like 30 years, who was the throws coach. I mean, he had, several
Right.
high achieving All-American throwers as well. But my thing is that I didn't want to go in there and really change the culture.
Okay.
We only had at that time, the athletic director had stated that they only had for the team. When I came in, we only had 5 kids.
Wow.
And that was for the women's team as well as for the men's team.
Wow.
And they were messing up academically.
Okay.
And so really looking at that, we grew that team. I went, basically around campus recruiting, and trying to pull out kids that weren't, necessarily athletic,
right,
but were, capable of doing the task at hand. And if they had the willingness to really want to learn, they're going to really improve themselves. And that year we grew to a team of probably about 20 athletes. So
okay.
we had a decent sized team.
Well, it's obvious, like I said, you know what you're doing because you took them from 5 to 20.
Yes.
I don't know in what period of time it took you to do that.
And it took just one season. So
wow.
One season.
Wow.
To do that.
So where you at now? Like, how many kids is there now?
So right now we average probably about 40 on the team.
Okay.
40 on the roster right now.
And how long you been? How long you was doing
So I've been there. I've been doing this goodness since 2017.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not trying to. And my thing is, I'm not trying to grow the program to where it's where I'm bragging about having 150 athletes, and none of the athletes go anywhere or do anything outside of barely getting a degree. My situation is really trying to help the kids in the community.
Mhm.
That's being a community college, not a junior college where we don't have dorms. Taking neighborhood kids and taking them to the opportunities that goodness, where they weren't getting recruited outside of an NAIA school,
Right.
And looking at these D1 schools, which are here, they had limited opportunities outside, for the sport.
Uh-huh.
Now they're getting opportunities to either run for that particular D1 school, or otherwise there's the D2 schools that are out there as well.
So it also sounds like when you speak about the community kids and
Yes.
and giving community kids an opportunity to do different things within the sports world. But academically, how is that? Like they must have a certain GPA or something to be able to on the team. Like,
Yeah,
let me know that process.
we have to have a 2.0 GPA, carry a 2.0 GPA on the team. This year, we basically had as a team, we had we carried a 3.0 GPA
Mhm.
across the board as a team. Some kids, it's a community college. Some kids are, or depending on what their need is.
Right.
If my need is to run track, but I also want to get a car, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I want to be,
Right.
so I'm
Right.
gonna work this 40-hour job,
Right.
and something's gonna slip. So
Absolutely.
I mean, because I'm trying to do things that are meant for full time,
Mhm.
which is running track and field, going to school, and then working a 40-hour week job. Something's gonna have to give.
Right.
So in some aspects, it might be the job, it might be the schooling and certain things like that, being from a community college.
Okay.
But the cool thing is that what our kids were able to maintain this year, which is that 3.0 across the board,
Mm.
for both the men and the women.
Okay.
The men started off with first semester this year, they were at a 3.1 GPA, and the women were at a 2.9. And then at the end of this year, or this end of semester, the women were at a 3.2 GPA and the men were at a 2.8. So I see that as a huge success.
Yes.
Because in terms of as well of things, is that I'm only me and my coaching staff, we're only stipend coaches. We're not full-time coaches.
Oh, okay.
Like a lot of the universities as well as these colleges are. We're not even really part-time.
Right.
We're stipend, so we're only given a certain amount of dollars to really make and attribute to the success of the community college system.
Absolutely. So with that being said, I also know because it's from a community college, right?
Yeah.
And you just talked about how the student has a lot of different things, or the athlete has a lot of different
Yes,
things
they have a lot of demands.
right, that they must contend with. You know what I mean? Whether it's having a job, a part-time job, a full-time job, and also being able to kind of continue on keeping their academics up or their academic score up. Is there programs in place at the school to help with that, to help the kids with those transitions?
Absolutely. So, looking at, we have a awesome Dr. Toole.
Okay.
She's part of our basically our campus dean, as well as our athletic director, Peter Olashek. They are, we have quite a few things that we offer. We offer tutoring. We offer, basically, meeting with, their instructors during their campus hours and certain things like that.
Mhm.
But, we have what is called career success,
Okay.
where, for kids who, and it's open not just for our athletes, but then it's also open for the whole student population.
Wow.
To where you can go in there and say, hey, I'm working 36 hours. And they'll sit down with you and put together a plan on how you would, first get the classes that you need,
Okay.
in order to obtaining your degree. But then
Okay.
they would also sit down with you and show you hours. Oh, well, I can't study. Yeah, there's minutes or there's hours
Right.
that you'd be able to put this together, but you just have to learn the discipline in order to doing it. And the first discipline is taking that opportunity and seeing, sitting down with somebody at a career success class.
And I wanted to absolutely get into that because a lot of people don't know that whatever academic school you go to, whether it's a junior college, whatever, there are some resources that actually can help.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
And so I know a lot of I want to say younger folks may not know and understand that. You know,
Correct.
they think that it's one or the other. Either they're going to be an athlete or it's going to be in academics. Or when they try to do them both, you know, they're going to be suffering in another area. But they don't understand that if they would to research this, right,
Correct.
that there are resources in place to help you succeed.
Correct. In a big way. And it's better than where we were at, you know,
Yeah.
or where I was at, you know, on a college campus at Michigan State, very, very huge campus, where it was competition
Mhm.
and it was more individualized. So you
Yeah.
go in a classroom and ask somebody to study, you know, and they're
Right.
like, "No, I'm not going to study with you." You know what I mean?
Right, right,
And,
right.
and-
For whatever
and
reason.
for whatever, exactly. You know what I mean? So you know, and then you know, and then you see them out in their groups or whatever, you know. But nowadays there's so many other resources that are available to you, whether it be, you know, online through the computer.
Yep.
You know, we were dealing with word processors and typewriters, and the big blue book, if you ever knew about that. So, you know, in order to write your essay, so it was on the big
You
blue
gotta
book.
go pick that big heavy encyclopedia.
Yeah, oh yeah, go and you spend time in the library.
Right.
But card catalog was the whole huge thing. So
Right.
so I mean, so nowadays, I mean, these things are all available to us, and in some aspects it makes us lazier as kids
Mm.
because it is right there at our fingertips.
Yes.
But the ones that take advantage of it really excel. And I mean, goodness, we were, you know, in 2024, we were able to have kind of like, for me, it was my first time ever, and asking the other coaches, it was their first time ever having a basically a valedictorian
Mm.
for the community college
Okay.
be a part of the track team. Gentleman, you know, he ended up speaking. His name is John Oida.
Mm.
He ended up speaking and ended up, you know, basically was the, you know, basically just the, you know, the valedictorian
Okay.
for you know the whole, you know, graduation there at GCC,
Mm.
which was huge, and that's awesome to have a track person represented in that manner
Right.
and stuff like that.
So I want to get to, so we get ready to get to a little meaty part right now.
Hey, that's all right.
You know, with all of the things that have changed with the student athlete these
Okay.
days, is it the NIL? So first, I want you to talk about the mindset, the state of the athlete now. Now that, what is it, NIL
Now
has
the
been
NIL,
right, has been implemented into student athletes.
So looking at the name, image, and likeness,
Okay.
you know, yeah, just with that alone, um, gives that athlete their own opportunity of creating their own brand.
Great.
And what a kid has to understand, or what a young, you know, male or female really has to understand is that the decisions you make affect your brand.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes down to not training, not being coachable,
Yes.
those types of situations affect your name, image, and likeness.
Right. Right.
It can't be all great lights where right now it's becoming where a lot of kids, it's a great light to have, and it's a great focus to have, which, you know, we get to receive. How much money are you going to give me
Right.
for some stuff that I haven't really done?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, so
I might potentially, right.
Yeah. And so far, I mean, like, you know, for me, we haven't had the opportunity, you know, at the community college level yet, even though it's being offered at the NJCAA level, the name, image, and likeness. But looking at it, and from what I see, I see a lot of kids driving around in these beautiful cars. I see a lot of kids going cross country on trips, doing certain things, which is really, really cool.
Right.
You know, but what I don't see is the payback for the amount of money that they're receiving. I don't see the national titles.
Right.
I don't see, you know, I don't see the conference titles.
Right.
So that's part of my meat.
Right. and that was absolutely what I wanted to get into, because I don't want to, we of a certain age.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get down on the kids, but I do want to say that you got to work hard for the things that you want to accomplish.
Absolutely.
And a lot of these cats, or a lot of these athletes, I shouldn't say cats, a lot of these athletes don't put the work in, and they want to be paid for something that they have not even done. Like you, why should I? Why? You know what I'm saying?
and it's based off of kind of like what we were talking about earlier. It's based off that ranking system,
Right.
And it's not necessarily that they're any good, any worse, you know what I mean? But sometimes they're going to make a brand relationship with a team rather than it being a coaching relationship with a coach, or because now they're saying that the coaches aren't loyal,
Right.
because the coaches get up and leave.
Right.
Whereas it's a case of, are you going to a system that's going to make you better?
Mhm.
And if not, then what is the situation from there? And then if we're only looking for the money, what happens when you don't show up to practice?
Right.
What happens when you're not doing certain things? Are you being docked for that? And is there going to be an opportunity for coaches to dock their athletes because they're coming in late to practice, because they're feeling like they can walk in with their telephones, or talking to their agent is more credible than speaking with their coach,
Right.
And certain things like that.
And so when you were saying that, different things was like hopping in my head, right?
Yeah.
So now here's this athlete that's trying to brand himself, right? But he's doing a bad job at it.
Correct.
But sometimes, or the way a person may think about this, some men may not look at the athlete, now they're looking at the coach, or they're looking at the way he's being mentored, or the way he's being taught. Can you speak to that? Because we know that sometimes it don't be the coach, it be
correct. I mean, in a lot of ways. I mean, my thing is that you can't discredit a coach when the coach has only known the kid for maybe a year.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, when a parent has known that kid for, like, let's say the majority of kids that are graduating now from high school, they're graduating at the age of 18,
Mhm.
18, maybe 17, 18, and 19 years old. So that parent has known that child for 17 to 18 and 19 years of their life.
Right.
And now want to place that responsibility on a coach, or on a university that has no, basically has only a couple months. When you're looking at football, it's immediate,
Right.
so they're expecting to know who this kid is
Right.
on an interview, where we already know in corporate America how that goes when a person can land an interview and speak very, very properly, and be able to dot his I's and cross his T's, and at the end of the day,
Right.
they don't know anything, so but those are those opportunities, because one of the things is that you look, I mean, a coach from Purdue had mentioned, he recently retired, and he left this with one of his other coaches, who's now a head coach at Abilene Christian.
Mhm.
And he was like, when you take on these kids, you're taking on kids.
Mhm.
So understand that, yes, they might be able to vote now, but you're taking on an 18 to 19-year-old child. And then you're developing them to go become a productive adult, or
Right.
A young adult in the society.
Right.
So he was like, they're going to make those common mistakes,
Mhm.
and that's what the college lifestyle or that university lifestyle is all about.
Right. And you and obviously you're a coach, so
Yeah.
you absolutely have to have, and in today's society, a lot of people don't have this one quality, patience.
Correct.
You got to have patience, and I need you to speak to that, because I know, like, I do a little training, media training around here.
Okay.
whatever,
Okay.
whatever. And so sometimes I understand about having patience,
Yeah. Definitely.
and even for
It tries you. Hey, patience is a beautiful thing, and it's a gift.
because even for us, even for me, even for sometimes it gets a little frustrating.
Correct.
It can be
Correct.
a little frustrating because I don't want to say. I need you to talk about that, Coach, about having the patience and being able to deal with certain frustrations as you're trying to mold this person into being a better person.
It's just it's just having that patience. I mean, you have to you have for one to in order to really be able to lead, you have to be called to lead.
Yes.
Um, and then the patience is going to allow you to bring on other people or to be able to help you. So I have a great staff right now that has really been able to help me along this way, kind of navigating through the journey. Um, but just having that patience, having that true appreciation for what you do,
Right.
Because at the end of the day, like what I tell the kids is that I kind of use that Bush term. We don't negotiate with terrorists when I get out there on the track. So I let them know that a lot of situation and it sounds tough or it sounds like what but
Right.
but to help them understand is that yes, you can put in your request.
Mm-hmm.
You can say, hey, I didn't train this way in high school. I
Okay.
didn't do this in high school. But once we get to college, it's a leap up.
Right.
And in terms of really understanding that you were suited by, there were other suitors out there. There were other schools that wanted you and that you're coming here for a specific reason. So
Right.
take on the opportunity to be coached by me
Mm-hmm.
and being given that opportunity. I also take that opportunity to say that I like kind of having as a coach you kind of want to have the last word.
Yes.
I had watching Michael Jordan. I wanted to be like Mike back in the day. So there's nothing that I haven't done
Mm-hmm.
in this track arena
Mm-hmm.
that I wouldn't ask you to do for yourself. I'm not going to, punish you
Right.
as a track person.
Right.
I'm not going to, basically over exude you as a track person. I'm going to listen to you, but then also you have to be willing to go through some of that, those challenges
Those
inside
challenges.
that mind.
There's
order
a structure to this.
Yeah, exactly. To really come up.
And that then a lot of times that has to be understood. A lot of times, today's younger generation,
Correct.
the way I should put it, sometimes don't understand the structure. They don't understand. So just the fact that
Because it's instant.
because it's instant, everything is microwavable to them now.
Yes.
And just because they can look at something up on YouTube, now they think they know as much as you.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And I totally. And don't get me wrong. Some of your points are valid.
Okay.
I will listen, but like you, Coach,
Yeah.
there's a structure to this shit,
Correct.
to this thing. You know what I'm
Correct.
saying?
Correct.
And okay, yeah, I heard you,
That's right.
but I said we need to do this.
And that's and that's where it comes down to.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's but sometimes it comes out as gold, and the majority of times, but it's also to the point nowadays where the child, or I won't even say the young adult, because we're talking about college kids.
Yes.
So now we're looking at having that understanding that as a coach, I don't want you to not succeed.
Right.
Because it doesn't allow me to have the validation as a coach that I need. You know what I mean? To feel successful within myself.
Right.
So in some aspects, outside of your parents, I might be your biggest cheerleader.
Right.
Because I want you to succeed. A lot of young adults nowadays take the coach as the person that does not want to see them succeed.
Wow.
And they do that by and it's they might not do it consciously,
Yeah.
but they do it physically
Yeah.
by a lot of the things, by coming into practice late, or acting like they're bigger than the team, or just those types of situations
Uh-huh.
that can cause, or
Right.
with track, just laying out on the track after we've gone months, and you should be in shape, you should be walking around, and you still laying out after the first
Right.
workout on a Monday.
Right.
So so just with all of that, understanding that the coach is here for you to see a good result out of you.
Absolutely.
They're not here to want you to lose. They want you to win.
Want you to win.
And so just that alone should be
Right.
the winner for most coaches out there.
Right.
But it's that ideology to for that kid to be able, or that that young adult to be able to catch on to it.
And listening to you, so there's another quality that you being a coach, and I'm
Okay.
sure you have this quality, because you are, and you got what you got.
Okay.
You've
Okay.
done what you've done.
Hey,
You know what I'm
that's
saying?
it.
Being able to speak being able to speak the athlete's language.
Okay.
And each child, I mean, I don't want, once again, we don't want to call them children because they're young adults, has their own language.
Correct.
And you got to be able to read that, find that, and being able to communicate where this
Correct.
athlete
Yep.
understands.
Correct.
You communicate.
Correct. And some of the kids are, some of the kids nowadays are on this word like, hey, coach, you just are chatting, or, coach, you're random. You know what I mean? And I was like, man, shoot. I said, you guys got to consider what's in the room.
Right.
I said, and they're like, huh, what are you talking about? So, or what do you mean? That's a new thing. What do you mean? I said, well, if there's 20 of you, there's 20 different personalities.
Yes, sir.
And they're like, huh? Well, yeah. So you might want to eat ramen noodles, and this other person might want to eat Chick-fil-A.
Right.
So what are we going to do? You know what I mean? In terms of bringing it together, or are you going to be able to go to your own spot, or otherwise you're going to be, I said, there's many choices.
Right.
So for me, I have to be able to know as a coach whether or not you like ramen noodles,
yes,
or otherwise whether or not you like Chick-fil-A, in order to make this thing work and come together.
Right.
And so in one instance, I might be talking about ramen noodles over here.
Right.
And then the other one, I might be talking about the Chick-fil-A over here. And understanding that I close on Sundays just like Chick-fil-A, and put a little personality and spin to it to help them understand.
Yes.
So and then they kind of catch on, and from there.
And that's very important. And that's me personally. I've seen a lot of different things throughout my life.
Yeah.
And that's a rare quality. You know what I mean? Because, and you had said something earlier, man, about leaders. And a lot of times, leaders are not given. Sometimes they're chosen.
That's right.
And a lot of people don't really understand that. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
Just because you're the best, just because you're the fastest runner on the team, that don't make you the leader.
Nope, not at all.
You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
And so a lot of these young athletes need to understand that. So, all right. So I want to just jump to what we doing. You're in Glendale this year? Like what?
Yeah,
what,
I'm
what's
out
happening?
there. I'm out in Glendale. We're
Okay.
having a lot of fun. Goodness, trying to put together a team has been just challenging in terms of, from a community college standpoint, to gather young women. And that's as a whole, I want to say more than likely, from a whole standpoint. So my thing is that just for the Arizona coaches that are out there that are track coaches on the high school level, goodness, try to encourage these young ladies who are seniors, because there are a limited amount of them.
Yes.
It seems like a lot of the younger ladies, or the younger ladies, when they become juniors and seniors, they end up falling off.
Okay.
Because some of the younger girls come in, they have that desire to continue to run track and field, and what happens with the juniors and seniors, it's getting a job, or really finding a career. And then the other thing is just supplying, doing things for themselves.
Doing things for themselves.
where it kind of hinders the opportunity for a community college to get that aspect from to get that type of desire from a young lady to come on out.
And I absolutely did not want to ask a loaded question.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
No, but
sometimes fact is fact and reality is reality. You know what I mean? And as you were speaking, I was in my head, I was thinking to myself, is it more difficult? Is there greater challenges with the female athlete opposed to the male athlete in that age bracket?
For me, I don't think that it's a challenge.
Okay.
Once they're there.
Okay.
Because women have a more they're more mature than
yes,
men.
they are. Yes.
So they understand what they're there for. They understand what they're there to do, and they will put forth the work and effort to do what they need to do to get what they need to get.
Right.
But the only thing is through that high school level, the sheer number of women or young ladies that are coming up, the numbers get smaller.
Right.
So for a community college, with those numbers getting smaller, it just gives you a smaller pool of young ladies to go from or to reach out to within that community or something like that. That have the desire to continue to want to really continue with track and field. From there. But we're growing. I ended up this season 3 young men who pretty much had the top 3 times in the not in the country but in the state of Arizona. They're coming out to me. I have a young man from Desert Edge. His name is Logan Yackley. Another kid from Willow Canyon. His name is Tyrese Jones. And then have Jacoby Lamar. He's also coming out, and he's from Centennial High School. Ran a 10:44, 10:43, as well as a 10:46 in the 100 meters. So try to get some speed this year. We have some young guys coming back who ran some phenomenal times this year, as well as had the opportunity for some All-Americans and stuff like that this year. So we're just plugging along. We're plugging along and trying to make it just a general impact on the community on that Glendale side, on that west side.
Yes.
Really trying to make an impact out there.
Yes.
And then allowing it to spread abroad over here to the to the east side as well.
Absolutely. And if we can help with that on this side, which we are going to do some couple of things, you don't know, you can probably be up on the website and some other different things.
That'd be awesome.
But yeah, we absolutely. But I had a question in my head. I'm just thinking about this. Have you ever seen well, I'm sure you have. Was there one time you seen an athlete that didn't look like he was fast as he was, and then he took off, and you like, oh my goodness.
Hey, we have a young man right now. His name is Quick. But he just goodness, second year ever running, and came out and deceptive, very 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 deceptive.
That was the word I was
got out. He came out of high school running 48 like 48.2 or something like that. And decent, really decent, fast kid. Ended up by the end of this year, and probably didn't have the what they say the typical sprint look.
Right.
Mechanics. I mean, he's probably about 135 pounds. Soaking wet.
Right.
Close to 6 foot, about 5'10". But the man has heart, something that you can't teach. He ended up dropping down to like a 45.81 in the quarter this year. Ran 20 point in the sub 21 in the 200. Ran 10.5 in the 100 meter. And this is just off of and when you would look at him, you walk by him like, man, this guy, you know what I mean? and then but he's got a competitive mindset,
right? And
he's determined,
right,
that he's gonna make it happen. And there's something about it. I mean, Carl Lewis said a long time ago that he said 80% of this, track stuff, is in your head.
Yeah.
He was like, you know, when you look at it physically, probably like 15% is the exercises and everything else like that that you do.
Right.
He was like, but 80% is when it comes down to competition time and what you're able to do with that 15% to make that 80, you know, that 80%, and then the 5% is just the odds, you know what I mean, and who you're in relationship with.
That competitive spirit that can't be taught. You know, it's just it's just ingrained in that person.
Correct.
It's just ingrained in the core of that athlete and stuff. So yeah, man, we appreciate you coming out, man, spending this time with us.
Hey, most definitely, man.
Hey, man, but before we go, I need you to shout out and plug everybody that's helped you get to the place we are today.
Okay.
In all your social media and where the athlete, if interested, can contact you to be able to participate in some of the activities that you have going on at the school.
Right now, currently, we don't really have any activities that are going on.
Okay.
Just in terms of if you're really interested in finding out more about our track and field program at GCC, feel free to reach out to me. My email is Brad, BRAD.Fields, FIELDS, at GCCAZ.edu. So that's once again Brad.Fields at GCCAZ.edu.
Great.
And that's what we do.
Okay.
We're you know, we don't have anything, you know, really going on. You know, some of the kids are out there during the summer. Our summer hours are, you know, Monday through Thursday. You know, campus is closed Friday through Monday. But most definitely, I'm there. You know, text me. You can, or you know, send an email out to me. I'll do my best to get back with you.
Okay.
Also, you can just, you know, you can reach out to, you know, Glendale Community College Athletics, you know, from that standpoint as well. I just want to, you know, thank my wife, you know, for, you know, just being patient with me. It's hard to be a coach's husband. It's definitely, you know, she's been there. She's my rock. We've been married for it's going on 27 years coming.
Wow! Shout out to the wife.
So,
you know what I mean? For having to put up with you.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Hey, you know. So I do owe her, you know, a couple songs and everything else like that. You know, that I sing so on occasions.
Whoa.
So yeah, just make it go from there. Have fun with it.
So that was wait a minute. Let's back up.
That is it.
We didn't even get that. We didn't even talk. So for all my listeners out there, that means there's going to be a part 2 to this. Because we didn't even get into the entertainment part of the things that you do in life.
That's it.
We're going to get to that. And part 2, make sure you tune in. You know what I'm saying? Once again, man, I had an opportunity to sit down with Coach Brad Fields. You know what I'm saying? And man, it was fantastic. It was great, man.
Hey,
I'm glad the opportunity.
Same here, man.
You will come out. Yeah, man. And sit with us, man. You know what I mean? So for all my listeners, man, you'll be able to see this once again on MediaMadeTV.com, MediaMadeMagazine.com, MediaMadeMusic.com. And if you want to reach out to us, you can always send an email to us at MediaMadeMagazine@gmail.com. Once again, Coach Brad Field.
Hey,
pleasure, thank you, my brother. Pleasure. It was great, man. It was beautiful, baby. It was beautiful. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
That's the good stuff. Appreciate it. Wasn't too bad.
No, it was great. Like, you know why this one thing ain't hold on. Stop. I don't understand. What is this? Come on, man. Oh, I see it.